Good day to our listeners. Today, we are discussing the impact of Stokvels on society. I'm your host, Chwanki, and I'm honored to have the opportunity to speak with someone who has an experience dealing with Stokvels from a bank perspective. Stokvels are a form of informal savings and investment group that are prevalent in many African communities. They have been around for many years. They've been used to help members of these communities save money, invest in various ventures, and provide social support to one another. In this interview, we'll be discussing the impact of Stokvels with our guest. As someone who works with Stokvels, the challenges they have faced, and their opinions on how Stokvels impact society today. Thank you for joining us, Sifiso. I would like, can you please introduce us? Can you please introduce yourself to us and give us like a brief description of who you are?
Thank you, Jwanki, for having me on your show this afternoon. My name is Sifiso Nkosi. I'm the head of Stokvels and Group Investments at FNB.
Okay. Can you please tell us about your journey? Like, where did it start? Like, how did you find yourself in that space?
So quite interestingly, as an organization, FNB has offered a form of Stokvel savings for many years. I think you can go back to probably the early 90s when we had a savings product for groups. But I think over time, we came to realize that we don't quite understand what's happening in the space. We had to be honest, look at ourselves and say, do we really understand why people across the country, across the continent, come together to serve as a group? And we didn't understand that. So we challenged ourselves to say, let's go out into the communities in South Africa and let each community share their story. Why do people save in groups? What's their motivation? What do they get? And what are they hoping to achieve long term? What became very clear is that we understand Stokvels to just be savings groups. That's not necessarily the case. We understand Stokvels to be a banking system. I think anyone who's had the pleasure or the privilege of working in this space will tell you that Stokvels are a banking system for those that have been neglected by the banking sector. So I think when we went to each community, we started realizing this. As part of Stokvels, some groups are saving. So yes, we're putting money aside so that we can buy groceries at the end of the year to help us sustain us throughout the year. We are saving towards school fees. We are saving towards spending money over the festive season. But a lot more groups are loaning money to members, right? So I've got a business, Jwanki. I'm in a Stokvel with you. I'm short on cash flow. You lend some money so that I can have cash flow to grow my business. Some Stokvels are insuring lives. So we are in a burial society. We are making sure that if anything happens to my family or your family, Jwanki, there'll be enough to
send their family out
in a very dignified way. So quite easily you start understanding there's a loans part to this, there's a savings part to this, there's an insurance part. And for that reason, that journey made us understand that the Stokvel ecosystem is actually a banking ecosystem. It's people that have not had joy in engaging or transacting with banks. So that's how Stokvels became formed. And now on our journey, we realize that we're only in step one of the journey. There's a lot more that we can do right, and we look forward to what that looks like in the future.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's very informative. So like, how does FNB like offer AMA products to AMA Stokvels? Like I hear you keep on talking about FNB, but from what I understand, like most people will need, like it's just that FNB, like from my perspective, it's offering people like bank accounts, more like investment saving account, right? Where you could just save together for that specific time. But which products like benefits, etc., does FNB actually offer to Stokvels?
Before I get into that, Jwanki, I think let's unpack this journey and how it started and how it got us to today. So I think once we started and made that commitment to say, let's understand, truly understand what the Stokvel banking system is about, we went into communities with the help of research partners across the country. We met young people, we met elderly people, we met people that were high income earners, middle income earners, low income earners. And there was the one thing, and that belief was, I can get further if myself, Ujwanki, and 10 people in my family or in my community put our resources together, then I can get to by doing it alone. And in that process, it was so important to, like we said, understand that the Stokvel is about savings, but so much more. The biggest piece is about it being a banking system. And from that, I think we then came back to ask ourselves, what can we as FNB do in order to enable more people that are in Stokvels to have access to banking? So we, with the communities that we then visited, started building something where communities had an input to say, this is what we'd like to see. Our starting point was, because the majority of the groups seem to be focused on savings, let's start with the savings products. We asked the groups, what are the things that you worry about? I think that communities and groups across the country worry about is, how safe is my money? I don't see it.
Yeah, that's true.
I gave it to Zwangi on Sunday, and I'm hoping it's deposited, it's at the bank. How do I know that the money is there? So that transparency was something that's key. Another thing that became important was, there's already trust in the groups, right? We already trust each other as members. That's why we're here. However, how do we make sure that that trust also extends to the money itself? Let's grow the money, because as the money grows and as we reach our goals as groups, then we know that the trust will increase in the group. So we went back and we asked ourselves, what do we have already in the FNB stable? We've got cell phone banking that allows any of us to be able to dial a number and see what's in our Stokvel account. We've got the FNB app. We've got online banking. What can we do? So with the communities, we built something. We call it a Stokvel product, but it's more than a product. You take up a Stokvel product right now with FNB, you will be able to invite members as viewers on that Stokvel account. So Zwangi, there's 15 of us. I have invited 5 members, you invite 5 members. All these members can actually see what's happening in their account. So if you have a meeting on Sunday and everyone makes their transfers on Monday, we'll be able to see the money on Monday to say our group has collected 1,000 Rand.
That's awesome.
That's quite important, because when I'm sitting at home and I know that I've got 200 Rand in that 1,000 Rand in the group, I can now dial a number, *120*321#. I can go to my Stokvels and I'll see that Sifiso Stokvel has 1,000 Rand. Now, all of a sudden, regardless of whether one of our members is Pulukwani, another one is in KZN, another one's in Eastern Cape, we are all seeing the same thing. For us, that was important, because the transparency means that you can rest assured that your money is safe. So that's tick number 1. Tick number 2, we are offering a very competitive interest rate within the market. It goes up to a maximum of 7.75%.
Wow.
So from the very first Rand that you save, you're going to be earning interest. That point is important, because when we engaged with groups, a lot of the groups said to us, yeah, but we keep the money under a mattress, we keep the money in a safe, we keep the money in a safety deposit box. A lot of groups didn't understand why we need to take it to the bank. And our recommendation here was, you take it to the bank so that it can grow and it can go further.
The interest part.
The interest part is very important. So we save 1,000, but we're not getting 1,000 at the end of the year. We're going to get 1,000 plus the interest that has accumulated over these months, which became super important. So this journey has been a good one, because it's allowed us to go on the first step, which is, let's get the money in the banking system. Let's get it earning interest. As part of what we offer, when it's time to pay our Zwangi, we don't want everyone now going to the branch and carrying the amounts in cash. Now we know, come October, November, December, even January, large amounts are being withdrawn as groups go into the branch. We said, if we've got a Stokvel, why don't we pay directly to Zwangi's account number? Why don't we pay directly to my account? So that we don't need to leave our meeting. We can stay in the meeting. We can all get our money without having it in cash. We know that security is a big concern for us as South Africans. So
and sorry to intercept you. I feel like this is the most important part of the mod, right? Because I think
Correct.
like around last year, like I've been doing research on Stokvels payouts, and there were many cases of fraud. Like, so as you say, like let's say maybe we are 15 in a group, like and we have a treasurer, like, right? We send him to go and withdraw the money in the bank, and someone within the group organize another group of his to rob the guy. So I feel like that is the most important one, like their
Exactly.
security. Yeah.
To your point, Jwanki, can you imagine saving for 12 months your hard-earned money? You've earned interest on it only for that money to be lost due to a crime or activity.
Yeah,
Very important. We not
that's
only
heartbreaking.
exactly, it's heartbreaking. We can't just encourage groups to grow their money. We also need to encourage and give very clear ways that the money can be kept safe. So now we can sit at the meeting. We all agree that we're all going to get 1,000 Rand out. Shwanki, your 1,000 goes directly to your bank account. 1,000 comes into my bank account. We are all safe. We can walk around assured that the money remains safe, which I think is a very big and important piece. Because as FNB, we've got other products within our stable, you are able to take the money out via e-wallet. So maybe there's a member who doesn't have a bank account, and you ask yourself, well, what happens to that member? No, that member can be paid via e-wallet. You've got a cell phone number, you can pay to that member via e-wallets. They can then go and collect the e-wallet at a time that is suitable for them. So I
Okay,
think it's important.
a quick question from what you are explaining, right? If I'm understanding this correctly, you're saying that someone who has no bank account can still be part of that group, that Stokvel group, that the package FNB offers. But how?
Correct.
Like, how?
Yes, let's get into how we do it. So, Jwanki, you bank with Bank A, I bank with FNB, and a third member of ours doesn't have a bank account. When I invite you as one of the signatories of the Stokvel to be a viewer on this account, you will get an SMS from FNB. It will say, Jwanki, you've been invited to Stokvel 123. Please dial the number *120 *321# to accept it. When you dial that number, it will ask you for your full name. It will ask you for ID number. Now we check that ID number to make sure it's a valid ID number so that no one can use your ID number or a false ID number. We'll then ask you, how do you want to get paid? You've got options. You can choose, I'm with Bank ABC, and you can put in Bank ABC's account number, or you can say, I have an e-wallet. Now, if you say you have an e-wallet, we will use that same cell phone that you're dialing from so that when it's time for payout, then an SMS will be sent to that cell phone number with a PIN so that you can go and you can withdraw the money when you want to use it. For me, who's banking with FNB, I will say I bank with FNB. We can pick up that you already bank with FNB. Then we pull that money over to your account where you're already banking with FNB. So you can see what we've done, Jwanki. People are already meeting in groups. The trust is already there. We don't need to play a part there. There's nothing for us to play. We've taken technology that already exists to say we've got cell phone banking, we've got app, we've got online banking. How about we use that technology to ensure that people can be safe, people can have the transparency that they want, which is at any point, whether you bank with Bank ABC or you bank with FNB, you can dial that number and you can see there's actually 12,000 Rand in this account. Now, through that, we can now see that actually Ujwanki Stokvel, it's not just the 3 signatories. There's another 15 people. Now, what our branches will then do is they'll contact you and they'll say, Jwanki, can we come to your next Stokvel meeting? We want to understand what financial needs your members have. Are they looking at an insurance product that will help, for example, them insure their home? Are they looking at an insurance or funeral products that will help them to protect their families? Are they looking at a bank account for the member who doesn't have a bank account? Now we are able to open up the full spectrum of FNB, and we can bring all these solutions that will help members. So we are excited about this because, as you can see, now we can show members that by being part of an FNB Stokvel, you get more than just the money that you put aside and the interest that accrues, but you get access to all of our products and all of our solutions.
Wow, this is some information that I've never come across. Like even I usually go, I bank with FNB, right? And sometimes I go to their branch and stuff, and I've never even seen banners put up somewhere like making awareness about what you just told me. Like, I feel like most people are missing out because one of the most reasons that people like are not fully committed to Stokvels is the trust, is the security part and transparency, right? But what you've just explained to me, it feels like you already have a solution for that. But how how can maybe someone, people from my neighborhood who have no idea about this, fire, like if they wanna use your F&B services, how can, where to start, man? Like,
Yeah, no, very valid points. I mean, you're an F&B customer, Joanki, you didn't know. So we realized that there's a lot here to be done in working in community. So what we're looking at doing now is we are setting up visits. As you
okay,
mentioned, it's so important to be present in the community. So if Mina grew up in Soweto,
yeah,
I need to know who are the right people at Dube and Soweto that I can partner with to help me to grow our Stokvel base. So what we're doing moving forward is I'm here on this podcast that you have graciously invited me to. We're going to be partnering with players like yourself, where you want to come visit, but we want to look after an entire area. So if we use it Dube, Soweto, we'll get to meet the 300 groups at Soweto, get to ask questions. We get to showcase this is the F&B offering, this is what we do, this is what we offer. We are able to leave brochures that show this is how you use the
okay,
technology. We are able to say, what else can you get as a F&B Stokvel member? We are then also able to say, over and above being an F&B Stokvel member, what other solutions can we cater to that you, Joanki, and all of the members of your Stokvel can tap into? So now that we've kind of launched this offering, now we're asking ourselves, how do we go into the communities? A big part of it would be because our branches already sit in these communities, they will be reaching
yeah, yeah,
out within communities to say, we'll be at this hall on this day. We would like to invite all groups. And what that will allow the groups to do is they'll be able to open up Stokvel accounts on site. We can then put you onto cell phone banking, onto the F&B app, and allow you to invite members and show you how to invite those members. Because when you do that, now you get to see the value of being in an F&B Stokvel, and you've got the ability to take on other things. Maybe you've got a business and you're looking for a point of sale machine so that your customers can swipe. Maybe you need a bank account because you don't have one. Maybe you need insurance. Maybe you need something else. Now we open up the full basket and we say, this is what you can get from F&B.
wow, man, that is revolutionary. I had no idea about it. But as they say, like you keep on learning. The more you interact with people, the more stuff you're learning, right? So another question that I have, like, remember the COVID-19 pandemic? Like,
Yes.
did like more people invest in Stokvels before the pandemic or after a pandemic? Like, what
Yeah.
happened?
Very interesting question. I think what we saw with that COVID-19 period was that a lot of businesses, for example, suffered losses, right? You,
Yeah.
Jwanki, you had a car wash, but we're under lockdown. So no one could bring cars to your car wash. I, for example, Salamagwinya, SIDini, now no one was traveling. I couldn't Salamagwinya. What was interesting though, when it comes to the Stokvel investment book, the book over that time grew significantly. It was growing at above 10% at a time where other parts of the economy were declining. So we asked ourselves, how is it possible that the book continues to grow, even though some parts of the population unfortunately became unemployed, people's work got affected, and so on. And the feedback we got from our customers was they, as members of a Stokvel, made sure, even if their income or their salary was affected, the first thing they did was pay their Stokvel, because they knew that that Stokvel was going to be part of the reason that was going to help, or how they get help if they needed to. So I know of Stokvels that paid out to members that became unemployed during that time, so they were able to feed their
Oh,
families
yeah.
and continue. There are some Stokvels that continue to collect the money, and during that period paid out even more so that members could continue trying to make their businesses work and so on. So for us, the COVID pandemic showed that there's a huge potential in a platform that is Stokvel, and we actually saw an increase in the number of Stokvels. We continue to see an increase, which for me shows us two things. One, Stokvels, a large number of them continue to be unbanked. They're keeping the money somewhere. It's not in a bank. But number two, more and more people are realizing that we need to actually grow together as a group and that we can get further as a group. Therefore, that creates demand for Stokvel products.
Yeah, the power of collective.
The power of the collective. Who knows, right? If we join hands, we'll go further than if I go it alone and you go it alone. And we look at the time now, inflation is very high. We looked at inflation in November, over 7%, in December, over 7%. People are realizing that when we stick together, we can lessen that blow of inflation. When we put money aside, we can get to a higher amount that we save, therefore benefit from high interest. So that power of the collective is really coming through.
Yeah, and that's the best thing about Stokvels, like you are not alone in that journey. Like you have a support every now and then. And that power of collective, it consists of everyone being maybe like expert in a different field, right? So we don't have maybe to outsource more knowledge outside. We can actually come up with people who have different expertise to put on the table, which gonna make our Stokvel a success, right? So during your interviews, like with communities, while you're busy trying to find out the real problems, like I know like most of the time, like even in my neighborhood, like there are still misconceptions about banks with Stokvels that no, they are not getting most of those of their savings. Misconception, how our people are. So like what are those misconceptions that you have faced and how did you overcome them?
I think the first part was a misconception of what a Stokvel is. A lot of people don't understand what is a Stokvel, why anyone would come together with a group of people. So a big part of it was almost demystifying these misconceptions of Stokvel. A Stokvel is not for Okoko, no auntie. It's not for old people, only ladies. It's not only a savings product. A lot of savings happen, but we know that there's a lot of insurance in the space. There's a lot of lending in that space as well. So it was important to demystify that. A lot of people also think that a Stokvel is only for groceries or only for sharing money in December or only for burial society. We met many groups that are buying properties as a Stokvel. So there's property Stokvels. We met many groups that are investing the money. So they're buying shares, they're buying franchises. That's an investment Stokvel. We made many groups that are travel Stokvels. So we put money aside, and in December, we're going to Mpumalanga. We put money aside, and over the Easter period, we're going to be going to Eastern Cape. So a lot of misconceptions are around a Stokvel is only for the elderly. It's only in African communities. It's only for women. We've come to learn that the concept of Stokvel is happening, for example, in Indian communities. It might be called something different, but the Islamic and the Indian community are using it for different things. Sometimes it's to send kids to school. So as a community, we put money together and we decide no child from this area will not have the opportunity to go to school. As early as primary school, going all the way up to high school and even university. We also know that some of the misconceptions are that Stokvels are only for low-income earners. We met with captains of industry, with CEOs, with business people that are using Stokvels for other things. In some industries, such as the taxi industry, a Stokvel is used to buy vehicles cash. So you get 600,000 this month so that you can go buy your quantum cash. Someone else gets 600,000 the next month to do that. So in all of this, we had to demystify that it's not only the African community. Yes, it's mostly the African community, but the colored community, the Indian community, and many other communities, including, believe it or not, the white community use the concept of group savings. In different communities, it will be used for different things. Sometimes it's for investments. Sometimes it's for taking care of immediate needs, like making sure we've got a burial cover. Sometimes it's for business and supporting each other's businesses. So those were the key things that I think we had to firstly demystify. Once then we got to that, a big question was, in the past, people felt that banks have not been fair to Stokvels. We haven't been giving a great rate. We haven't been making it easy to transact on a Stokvel product. And that was part of the inputs that we took to say, if Ujwanki as a business owner can have the FNB app for his business, the FNB app for his personal account, why can't he use the same app for the Stokvel account? Now you can,
Okay,
Joanki, on the same
that's
app, you
it.
can see your business account, you can see your personal account, you can see your Stokvel account. It's rich feedback like that that allowed us to then build what we've now built. And I think we don't look at the engagement with the communities as a once-off. It's not something that we did 5 years ago and we'll never do again. We continue to engage with them now. And I'd love to share some of the things that they sharing with us as feedback to say where we need to take the Stokvel banking system and what are the things that we can do to enhance it.
Yeah, okay, so wow man, that's a lot of information, insightful information at that. Like I keep on learning throughout this session. Like I'm sure many people will find this session informative. So like what advice would you give to Stokvels looking to invest their money in the current economic climate?
I think what we've seen now, Jwangi, is there's been a lot of increases in terms of the repo rates by the South African Reserve Bank. So it's getting more and more expensive to borrow money. But for people that are saving money, it's also becoming more and more rewarding because you're getting back a lot more in terms of the money that you're putting aside. So I think the first thing I'd like to speak to is that money that doesn't earn interest is not being used ideally. If we're putting aside money, let's make sure that it's growing and earning interest. So the first thing is let's put that money into an interest-bearing account. Yeah, let's put that money to work. You say 100 Rand, you want to make sure that next month it's going to be more than 100 Rand so that it can keep on growing. So let's take the money and not just collect it in cash, but let's put it into an interest-bearing account, a savings account, so that it can continue to grow. We are seeing now, for example, that inflation is very high. We've spoken about inflation that is above the government targets or South African Reserve Bank targets. We need to make sure that that money is working for us, because if we're keeping the money and we're getting it 12 months later and it's the same amounts that we collected, we are losing out to inflation. So our money or our rands buy less and less over time. I think the economic climate now also shows that it's extremely difficult for consumers. Electricity costs are increasing, food costs are increasing. So we can do so much more if we partner up with other individuals that are like-minded like us, individuals that want to make their rands work for them, individuals that want to make sure that they can achieve so much more instead of doing it themselves by doing it with the community. So there's a good opportunity. And people always ask, Ranki, where do I start? We're all part of a family. I've got sisters, I've got brothers, I've got cousins. That's the first place you can look to first.
That's how it starts.
That's how you start in your immediate family, close friendship circle. You need to make sure that you've got trust, you've got transparency, and you ensure that your money is safe. And if you do that, you can come together with other members. You can make your rand stretch for you, and you can make sure that you deliver on your goal of growing your money. There's other groups that have now grown their money, and they're asking, we don't want to hold this money in just cash. What's next? And I think that's a very exciting space that we find ourselves in. So we've got private advisors that are part of FNB investments. So now we've got private advisors that are visiting those groups. Jwanki, you spoke about how do we visit groups Ekaslako or Ekaslami? We're visiting the groups to make sure that they bank the money. We're now coming back to visit those groups and we're saying, this money can grow a lot more if you invest in different types of assets. You can buy shares if you're trying to invest for the long term. You can buy unit trusts if you're trying to invest for the long term. You can put your money in different places so that it grows. So you can see that the moving of money from cash to an interest-bearing account is a start. We're now having chats with groups to say, here's where you can put the money for it to grow further. Some of those groups are saying, we want properties because that's an asset we understand. We've got what we call group buying. As a Stokvel, we can have up to 12 of us sign on a single property and we all jointly own that property. Now, as a Stokvel, we can buy properties, we can get rental income from those properties, and we can grow as a group. So now we are starting to move away from step one, just making sure that that money is not in cash and it's earning interest. To number two, where do we put that investment to make sure that it grows? It can go into unit trust, it can go into shares, it can go into so much more, including properties, and we can do that via group buying. And we're going to keep on extending all these banking solutions to ensure that, like we say, we're not only looking at the savings aspect of Stokvel, but we're also looking at other aspects of this banking system so that we can continue to bring more to save us in South Africa.
Wow, man. Yeah, that's very insightful. And that's it, guys, for this episode of KasiConvocation. Thank you, Sifiso, for joining us today. And thank you for this insightful interview on the impact of Stokvels on society. We hope that this discussion has provided valuable insights into the benefits of Stokvels, challenges they face, and the ways they contribute to society. As we heard from our guest from FNB, Stokvels plays an essential role in helping people save money, invest in their future, and build social support networks. From providing financial security to fostering social cohesion, Stokvels are an important part of many communities around the world. We hope that this interview has given you a better understanding of the impact of Stokvels on society and the many benefits they offer. Thank you once again to our guests for sharing their experience and insights with us today, and for our listeners at home for blessing us with their time. Until next time, guys, stay blessed, informed, and keep supporting Stokvels. Once again, thank you.